Thank you very much for doing the interview with us, and congratulations for making semifinals. Today's 3-0 result was maybe a little bit unexpected. How did you feel coming into the series?
Coming into the series, I think I expected some sort of 50-50 maybe. But with the series being like 3-0 and everything, I'm not quite sure what actually happened there. I mean, how I feel about best of fives is like, in general, the first game sets the pace of the series in a way. Similar to how the Origin SKT game yesterday was quite close in the first one, and then they just ended up snowballing the other two games. And I feel like that kind of the same thing kind of happened to us today. And I'm not sure like if we could have handled it better in a way, but I just felt like they had such an advantage mentally already from going from game one, you know, because we expected going into things that it would be 50-50 and we got ran over, you know. Obviously we made a lot of mistakes. We could have actually won the first game, I think, but I think they played better, you know. They were the better team today, so I don't think we deserved to win this series, but I'm in general very happy that we made it so far at Worlds, you know. Like, going out of groups last year made me want it so much more this year, and I mean, obviously going to finals would have been like super cool, but getting to semifinals in hindsight is like, I'm already proud of that achievement for sure.
Yeah, speaking of the first game, you said that it was a little, you thought it would be 50-50 and they kind of ended up taking control of the game. It felt like a lot of instances your team was trying to force situations a lot around the mid-game. Do you think that was based off composition? What was going through your mind at that time?
During the first game, like, I didn't necessarily even realize that we were forcing things so hard, but like after the first game, Daylor told us that we're forcing way too many things that's like that has no goal in it, you know. Like, usually we go for a dragon play and then there's a fight there and then there's a goal behind that fight because of the dragon, you know. But actually thinking back at things, like game one, we were just forcing things to force things, you know. And I don't think that's necessarily even the composition. I just think that we didn't play our A game today, you know. And I think KOO capitalized really, really heavily on that, even in the first game, because we had the lead going into things, you know. The first 10 minutes were going really smooth. We got the top tower in a 2v2 situation, so we were like snowballing the game pretty much how we wanted to be, you know. And then we kind of just dropped the lead somewhere along the line and made these kind of like rushy decisions, and then they ended up taking over the game super quickly, and there was no coming back from there, you know. And then they had this like mental strength going into game two, which we didn't have. So I think game one just decides the whole series, you know. That's how I feel in these situations, and I think we should have won that game one if we played like our A game, but for some reason we didn't necessarily come up with our A game today. And I think, at least for myself, I got a bit scared, you know, playing that first game and seeing how many mistakes we were doing, you know. Like, if it was just a bad game and the next game would be better, you know. That's why we didn't necessarily try like new things either in game two, you know. We kind of just defaulted back into like what we usually works for us. But then that didn't end up working either, so we were like, well, then game three is here already. We're already 0-2, so I just think it's super hard to bounce back after a game one like that one, similar to how Origin couldn't bounce back yesterday. So yeah, they just took control of our mistakes, I think.
There have been situations where Fnatic has lost a game and they've bounced back. What do you think was different this time around?
I'm not quite sure, honestly. Like, we had the drafts we kind of wanted, you know, like we had similar drafts to what we were successful with in the quarterfinals or even the groups. Obviously, I brought in the Ashe today, but that was mainly because of it being such a power pick against KOO Tigers, because they play like double TP, immobile AD carry, immobile mid, so they have no cleanse on the mid laner as well. And the Ashe arrow is just very, very powerful, a very, very powerful tool in a way against KOO Tigers. But they like ended up defaulting away from what they showed in the quarterfinals, you know, with the quarterfinals being like SMEB focus. And then these games ended up being like, and then they played backwards, you know. They had like 2 immobile carries and they just ended up peeling backwards every team fight. And then today they showed a totally different KOO Tigers, you know, and they ended up like building this go ham comp, and then they just kept killing me over and over. And I think they just like, they are a really good team, you know. They're able to play 2 very, very different styles equally good, you know. And I think we weren't quite ready for that, you know. We made a very clear plan going into things that we're going to play like this and this against these guys, because they showcase this in the quarterfinals and then they end up going away from that and just do a totally different thing in game one, you know. And then we were like kind of confused, I would say. I think that's the biggest difference. We weren't like quite sure where to put them, where to go from here, you know, because we ended up preparing so much for KOO Tigers that didn't even show up today, you know. And I think that's maybe where we fell flat. But at the same time, I still feel like they were the better team today, and I don't feel like we deserve to win this series. But taking a game or two would have been super nice. But I still feel like they deserve to be in the finals, and I have no hard feelings at all about today. It's just a bit saddening perhaps to fall flat right before the finals. You know, when you're so close, you really want it, but next year maybe.
Speaking of next year, Fnatic still made it really far. What would you say is something that you personally took from the tournament that you can take with you for next year?
I think the biggest thing I took this year is that me as a player or me as a person, I put down a crazy amount of effort into this. You know, I don't have free days. I just push myself sometimes above my limits. You know, and I feel like the Korea bootcamp, I pushed myself too far. You know, so when I came around for Worlds, I wasn't like bringing my A game as a player. I think I wasn't able to have the same drive when I wake up in the morning, have the same drive as a player to push myself to be ahead of other players. You know, I was just fine being equal or catching up. You know, with as the tournament went. You know, so perhaps in the future I will not necessarily look to be a worse player in LCS. You know, but like look to be on my A game once Worlds comes around, because the year is so long. You know, there's 10 months of game time basically. But if you're not on your A game once Worlds comes around, why does the 9 other months matter? You know, whatsoever. So I think that's the biggest thing I can take this year, that I need to be able to keep myself on my A game for four weeks straight. You know, because at groups I felt fine, but like it becomes some sort of a grind. You know, after a while. You know, it's really hard when you're practicing the same team over and over. You know, playing the same, like it's really hard to keep up the mental strength and keep up the drive that you have for so long. So perhaps if I went like lighter in Korea, maybe, you know, and then went more ham here, or just focused on doing what I was so good at before, you know, because I felt like a new Rekkles maybe even perhaps showed at this Worlds, one that wasn't so successful in the past, you know, not the one that won the summer finals with Fnatic, you know. So I think I have a lot of things to learn from this year. I'm not quite sure about all of them yet. I will have to like rewatch the VODs, think twice, you know, about everything I've done this year. But in the end, I'm just proud, you know, at the same time, of everything we have accomplished. You know, we ended up going 18-0, winning the summer finals, getting ourselves into the semifinals, and it being the first year for players like Huni and Rainover and Fabian or Feb even. It's a really great feeling for them, for me as well, because I know they will be so successful in the future. You know, if they keep working like they do now. So I'm just proud, yeah, in general.